Welcome to Meet the Voter, episode 12, January 3rd, Sunday, 2016. Today on Meet the Voter, we have Rob Hix from Gatlinburg, Maryland. He's a proud Christian capitalist, owner of Audiovisual Designs. There's Nick Hernandez calling. Installation of, I got to start again. Come on, Nick. He's calling me like right in the middle of the show. Let me get him. Hey, Nick, what's up?
Maybe I should just do my own.
How could you not? Nick can't find it. Jonathan, could you help Nick find it? Rob, all you do is you got to go through. Just go through the shows, Nick.
He's changed the artwork again.
Oh, the artwork. It's going to look like a capital. It's gray. It says "Meet the Voter." I got you. That could be it. It should be near the top.
I think 1984.
Just scan through.
Actually, the search wasn't working very well, Bill.
No, don't use the search. Just go through it. Just go through it.
It's bluish.
When I clicked on it, it was like the second or third one.
Yeah, it should be second or third one. It's on right now on live.
Oh God, he's on his vapors.
Just pull it up. Just stay on there, Nick. I'll put your name up now. Don't try to search it. Just sort of go through the shows that are live. We got a lot of folks. Hi, everybody. We got 12 people watching. It's gray. It's got a capital. Sam just came on. Let's see if Sam's working. You'll find it.
She's not having much luck.
Sam, she might work.
Yes, we can't see you, Sam. You're finished.
Yeah, she can come back.
You come back. You need to come back, Sam, somewhere.
Let me see. It should be pretty easy to find, Nick. It should be, just go into what's live right now. It's going to be gray. And it's going to have a logo on the front of it.
Welcome to the American voter, right? Now you just want to
okay, Nick, we're going to go three of
dimple the Chad and
we'll definitely break you in. Just hold a second. Yeah, I've got 10 minutes. Okay, you'll find it. You'll see it. Just look at it. You'll find it. Okay, I just locked it down. So here we go.
Lock it down. All right.
We recorded all this.
Gaithersburg, Maryland.
Welcome to Meet the Voter, Sunday, 3 January, 2016. Today in Meet the Voter, we have Rob Hix from Gaithersburg, Maryland. Rob is a proud Christian capitalist who owns Audiovisual Design, Installation and Design Integration Systems. Jonathan Denwood is an entrepreneur, tech businessman, owner, and Socialist Christian Democrat from Carson City, Nevada. We also have Sam Brooks will be coming in later, as well as Dr. Nicholas Hernandez, both from the Southland and Southern California. And I'm Bill Conrad, your moderator, Republican from Reno, Nevada. Now it's time to get into Meet the Voter and figure out what happened. It seems like it's been ever since I watched Meet the Press. So what did they talk about? Anybody remember?
You want me to do? You want me to?
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, well, they had, the bit about Trump responding to Hillary's remarks about him being sexist, bring up Billy, her husband. It wasn't that. Well, actually, I thought the reporter section, the panel section, was probably the most interesting bit in a way, because they actually started discussing why Trump has become so popular, and they actually heard some of the, they actually voiced some of the frustrations of the average voter, and that's the first time they've done that, really, being that they're all corporate reporters and all bought and sold for, really, aren't they?
That's what you say. Yeah, whatever. Maybe they're journalists. They had a pretty interesting panel on today. I remember that.
And, they had various voices on, didn't they? They had, the so-called moderate Republican. I forgot his name.
John Kasich.
Had Casey on.
My least favorite Republican.
Yeah, he is. Why is that, Bill?
You know that because I ran for Congress. I had a targeted Republican safe district, and he came out and supported the Democrat.
Oh, did he?
In a safe Republican seat, yeah.
Oh,
well, they pulled the funding because they wanted his vote when Kasich was the finance chair. And then they went so ballistic after he came out and did that our Republican organization, not my campaign, really pounded him, and he withdrew, and he did not do it. It was for Gary Condit. Gary Condit was a terrible congressman.
Oh, well, it's all
He's
good,
the guy who got in trouble with a lot of scandals, things of that nature, and in turn was killed, who worked for him.
And they really didn't. I don't know what your. I watched the whole show. It just really didn't seem to be much of a discussion, really, about real issues or real concerns, really. But I don't know if that was my impression. What was yours, Bill?
Well, yeah, I'm going to ask Rob right now. I'm actually pulling up Meet the Press. What did you think, Rob?
I didn't watch Meet the Depressed.
Oh, you didn't watch it? I watched it today. Yeah, Jonathan recapped a couple of my ideas, but it's been so long I didn't take great notes. But they talked about Clinton. I thought it was actually a pretty good Meet the Press. I think Ron Paul was on. They talked about Ron Paul for a while. And Ron Paul is probably the guy who I lean towards most. He sort of, if you listen to Ron Paul, he's as honest as, he's probably his most honest candidate out there in what he's saying. A lot of things he's saying is not popular. I think he's saying three things. He's saying that you need to raise the Social Security age to 70. Mm-hmm. There needs to be a means test, and that you shouldn't spend more than you bring in. And he includes, it says, yeah, there's times when you have to fund a war and defend a country. And when there's national war, declared war, that's one of the only times that he'd say is that you spend more than you bring in. So he's saying it, what he says, he's probably the most straightforward, toughest guy out here, and probably going to do okay in Nevada. Maybe not great, but okay. His organization's starting to get in place. I just was watching a show about him, and he's got all his precincts in order. Not precincts, but the county chairs in order. So I remember that, and Kasich was on for a while. Kasich is actually somewhat might do okay in these primaries coming up. It's hard to say. Kasich is definitely an establishment, and they talked about the establishment candidates being Bush, Kasich, and Christie are the established candidates really who are the strongest left. So they're fighting over the same votes in the first early primary. So they'll split them, whereas Trump really stands out there by himself and will probably take it. They also talked about Cruz a little bit. Cruz is in second place in most cases. And those were some of the things that they hit on today. I thought it was actually a pretty good show. And remember, I'm just getting my mind back in space and time now. But it's going to get more and more interesting, I think, now at the Christmas holiday is over. I think next week even more people will be watching. You'll be back to work. So I think it's going to be pretty interesting as it evolves here. What do you think, Rob? Now I gave you what happened.
No, I think next week's show we'll all kind of mentally be back and re-engaged, and yeah. So you're right. It's it's even weird just to think that I'm going to be going back to work tomorrow. It's like, oh my God, I've 10 days of reprogramming my brain of being off work, and now I got to go back to reality. And so I'm sure the opinions will all come back within the next 7 days. But
yep. Hey, this is pretty nice. Just put in the link. It looks like you can watch the full episode online. So I just put the link in, which is kind of nice. So I think that's enough of Meet the Press. Let's talk about what you think is going on in politics right now and what you think should go on. It was pretty quiet this week, I thought, overall in the world. Nothing really major happened. I think people were celebrating the new year and Christmas. And so I think it was pretty darn quiet for a change. But I think that's about to change.
Yeah, it was super quiet. Jonathan and I didn't even talk to each other about politics. We talked about WordPress and everything up but politics, right? saying Merry Christmas to each other, Happy New Year, but I don't.
Be nice.
We didn't talk about politics one time in the last 10 days.
I'm always nice to Rob. Rob's always. Yeah.
Sunday is the only day I really talk about politics. Tech is on Saturday. We do a lot of other shows too. We do WP Tonic, and then I do the Daily Show at 9:00. Stephen Key is going to be on tomorrow. That's going to be a good show. He's a big one. He's my biggest draw. He's male. He's got I forgot the Invention Right. He owns Invention Right, which is really big on the West Coast. Okay. He's invented a lot of stuff.
Shall we get back to the politics, Billy?
So
so what I've noticed over the past couple of months, apart from Bernie Sanders, is there really is and apart from some comments about wild comments about defence and how you respond to ISIS, there really hasn't really, to my knowledge, been any real kind of discussion about real policy. and about exactly in any shape or form you improve the lives of average American citizens. It's quite clear to me that there's obviously here as kind of they all point out their plans there, which you can always available on their websites, but it has been very kind of personal and avoiding any real discussion about any real policies.
Yeah, I'd say somewhat, except for Rand Paul. Rand Paul's put out, some pretty straightforward policy and has a platform that I know of. They probably all have written platforms if we dig into it. But yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate. Hey, with that, we're going to go to a break because I think we got Nick back up. Okay, we're coming back from a break. We've got Dr. Nicholas Hernandez. Nick, welcome to the show. Dr. Hernandez is from Laguna Beach. He's an artist down there, and we all know him if you watch the show. So let's talk about Bernie Sanders. That's your candidate. How's he doing this week? What's going on?
Oh, he's tearing it up. They had the coffee bean jar thing in New Hampshire, and everywhere he goes, he just had 31,000 people. Which other candidate had that many? Like none. Absolutely none. Okay. And when all the candidates that they're talking about, they don't even come close to that at their rallies, and yet they ignore Bernie. They're afraid. They're beautifully, wonderfully afraid of what Bernie's doing, because Bernie's going to tear it up. I can hardly wait for the voting to start. I can hardly wait. And when the voting starts, we'll see how that goes. Now, Bill, you mentioned a few minutes ago that I'm in the minority about the open carry.
Let's stay on this for a second. I just want to talk about Bernie Sanders a couple more minutes.
Yeah, Bernie is getting. Bernie is. The media is not covering Bernie, but the communications union, the workers, just endorsed Bernie. And across the board, he's getting major endorsements. Obama got 2,200,000 donations, individual donations. Bernie's already got over 2.5 million. He broke Obama's record. What other candidate? I mean, other candidates are getting more money, but of course they're getting super PAC money. And Bernie refuses super PAC money, and he still got $33 million going this week. So, he's pulling in a huge amount of money, and he's pulling in a lot of people. And the media is ignoring him, and they're ignoring everything. They still say that Hillary has a huge lead, but I've seen several polls that show him quite a bit ahead. I just saw a poll the other day that said if Bernie went against Trump, it would be about 16 points, which is a crazy landslide. 6 points is a landslide, but 16 points, 18 points is huge. And nobody, the media just won't talk about it. They just will not talk about it. Did you see Meet the Press today? What was it? He didn't even get a minute.
Well, let me go on and talk about another thing. How do you think that the Trump attacking the Trump-Clinton battle is going to affect Bernie Sanders?
Well, I think they're both, that Trump and Hillary going after each other, they're wasting their breath. And that's okay. It's good. It helps Bernie because
I'd like to ask Nick a question. There's been a lot of reporting online that Billy Clinton has been going around saying that he's got a load of the super candidate voters in his pocket, and Bernie can do whatever he likes, but he's been telling people that he's got it all bagged. The super delegates.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make it really clear, and I hope a lot of Democrats make this clear. I'm not voting for that witch. And I'm, if they fiddle Bernie out of it, I'm voting Jill Stein of the Green Party. I'm voting for her. I'm not going to vote for that bloody witch. I don't care what she does. I'm not voting for her. And if you were really had some guts, Nick, you'd say you wouldn't vote for that witch.
I've already said that. I've already said that. Are you kidding me? I'll write in Bernie. And that's what's going to happen for almost all of us, that are supporting Bernie. Again, I want to go back to some numbers that I mentioned before. Hillary has all these, supposedly higher numbers of supporters, but only 38% of her voters are very enthusiastic. When they say, are you somewhat enthusiastic, kind of enthusiastic, or very enthusiastic, those kind of polls. And that would translate to about maybe 42% of those backers that end up at the polls and actually vote. Bernie has a 78% very enthusiastic. So that translates to about 80% of his followers are going to go to the polls and they're going to vote. And I've been to several now, about a dozen Bernie events, and the people are on fire. They're on fire. And it's the millennials. And the Bernie has this, one of the campaign is bring 5 people with you to the polls. And it's working. Every single person, every Bernie person that I talk to, we all talk about, okay, we're going to get 5 people to come to the polls with us. And we are going to do that. We are doing that. And it's spreading like wildfire. Oh, Bill, Robbie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I won't say his last name, but he's he's a relative of ours and a right-wing Republican for his whole life. Yesterday, he sent me an email saying, I'm a lifelong Republican and I will always be a Republican, but I'm voting for Bernie.
Really? He said that? Wow.
Yes, he did. And the reason he said that, because he's the only candidate that he sees with real integrity.
Yeah, I like to ask Rob. You seem to love open carry in Texas.
John, hold a second. Yeah. We're gonna take a break and we'll come back to the Second Amendment after the break. I think because I'm looking at the time. Hey, on the and that'll be the last issue, and then we'll go into the YouTube section and bring other folks in and out. But really, so we got some liveliness in Bernie. Bernie Sanders does have a heck of a campaign going, and he was within $3 million of Hillary on fundraising. His fundraising was absolutely amazing. I do think you're in for
without super PACs.
Yeah, and the other thing is, it came up today a couple different places, and the FBI investigation is still out there. Reference her email.
I just want to know who on earth would want to vote for that witch. I just want to know who would vote for that corrupt witch.
Hey, Rob,
I love to get somebody on this show to really tell me why they're going to vote for that witch.
Why don't we call up the headquarters and see if we can get
hold your breath on that one,
supporter
on a roundtable last night on CNN.
I just want to know. I just want to know the rationality.
I think we just lost some people up above. Some people just people just left. Oh my gosh! Hey, Rob, why don't you finish up this episode?
What about the open carry?
No. We're going to go after a break. Just finish up your thoughts about Bernie Sanders' race.
I lean more towards the journalist, and I kind of just laugh at him. I mean, he's just he's just a joke to me. Yeah, his politics are a joke. He's an utter idiot, and I feel sorry for the people that support him because he's just an idiot.
I feel sorry for Nick.
I'm going to really be fun to see how everybody feels after the voting starts. You'll finally get to see what Bernie is about after the voting starts.
I assure you that America will shrug if he gets elected.
Well, Rob, you say this, but what Pacific policies that Mr. Sanders is put forward that you find so offensive and so ridiculous, Rob?
Taxing me at 90% of my income is about as offensive and repulsive as you can possibly get. I mean,
never said that.
He's never said that anyway, Rob.
Never said that. Ever.
Can you find any document, any third party
never said anything like
support for that statement, Rob? You won't be able to. He's never said that. Rob.
So what's his top? What's his top tax rate?
Have you ever listened to him? Have you listened to him? I've listened to him over and over again, and he's never said anything close to that.
I know. That's why I put the Kool-Aid sticker in.
Yeah, but you come out with this statement.
But you haven't listened to
you admitted that you know it's not supported by anything. It's just propaganda from you.
But he comes across as a huge propagandist. I mean, it's all about.
Have you listened to him? Have you ever listened to a whole speech?
You spend all your time asking me questions like you're going to give me a chance to answer them. What repulses me are politicians getting in there and using the common out or the position of the greater good, and it's the wealthy that are the bad guys, and we need to tax and screw them. And I mean, it's like that kind of speech is just evil and poisonous to any society, particularly a free society. So.
No, when did you hear him say that?
Did I hear him say what part?
That he wants to screw the wealthy, and the wealthy are the bad guys. I've never heard anything like that.
So
we don't
Rob,
like people because of what they say. It's because of what they do, and it's the doing part that I'm concerned about. Treating me like I'm the bad guy because I'm a producer is offensive to me. Flat out.
So you're
offensive.
So you're all for the Wall Street banksters and the other that got bailed out.
I don't consider bankers to be that's just money changers.
What about Wall Street?
You're Wall Street and their backers. You're all for them continuing screwing the American population, are you?
I mean, you're giving me like a black and white question that could be answered that. I mean, I don't consider myself a Wall Streeter because I'm not. But I do consider myself to be a producer, and if
producers are great.
They're an
so do you honestly feel then, Rob, that the top 1% of the 1%, which is Wall Street, is the bankers, is the people that have got their troughs right in their snots right in the trough of the public purse? You see them as true capitalists?
No, I don't.
People.
I don't. I mean, to me, that's not how I define capitalism. I mean, the government and the people, the wealthy being wired and dialed into the pockets of people like Hillary Clinton or any politician you want. That's not capitalism. That's not the way capitalism works. I mean, that's for sure crony capitalism, and it's given a bad name, to legitimate businesses and the people that earn wealth. But
I just think it's sad, Rob, that you really do need to listen to what Dr. Nick has suggested, some of Mr. Sanders' speeches, because I don't think he said that a true capitalist that really works hard shouldn't be allowed to do that any longer in America. What he's saying.
What politician could possibly get away with that? I mean, it was like amazing that Obama didn't get excoriated for saying, the clinging to your gods and guns and stuff like that. But but a white man saying that, there's no way that whether you're liberal or conservative, a politician could get away with being that overt.
Hey, with that happy thought, we're going to go to a break. Okay, we're back for a break, and we've got requested to talk about the two final issues. We're going to talk about just the Texas open carry, but before that, Nick is going to bring us up on what's going up in Oregon with a rancher who's being thrown into jail for another 5 years. I guess a couple ranchers.
Wait, nobody, Bill, I think you're talking about something different than what I'm talking about, because no arrests have been made. Nobody's going to jail at this point in time. Right now, the police up there, the sheriff's department and the FBI, they don't want to go in because these people are something like suicide people. They're saying they're going to fight. You're going to fight the sheriff. You're going to fight the FBI. That's like suicide by cop. Okay, they're not going to win. And so the police don't want to run in right now and kill anybody. And I don't blame them for that. But nobody's been arrested. So I don't know what you guys are talking about in terms of somebody going to jail. You're talking about a completely different thing than what I'm talking about. They took over it's a small facility, a federal building, and it's used for environmental protection. It's a environmental protection agency, which these guys seem to think is some kind of a comedy plot or something. And they've been cheated. And it is Ammon Bundy. Look it up. Ammon Bundy, the son of Clive Bundy. Clive Bundy was using federal land to feed his cattle, and was asked many times to not do it, and he did it. And then there was a confrontation, and a bunch of farmers came up with their little guns, thinking, these little pop guns that they have, thinking they're going to go up against an army. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. So right now, but the media is acting like, a bunch of nice guys. Like I said, if a bunch of Mexicans or a bunch of blacks had taken over that building, it would have been over in an hour. Okay. I mean, are you going to tell me there's not this kind of racism in this country?
Well, I think you're mixing all sorts of things all jumbled up together, and then you're coming to a conclusion.
Jonathan, you don't even know the right issue we're talking about. You're talking about somebody going to jail. There have been no arrests, so you don't know anything about this.
Nick, I put the link up to the article.
I do actually, Dr. Nick. The rancher and his son have already been in federal prison, and the federal judge came to the conclusion. I don't know all the ins and outs.
Different time, different space. There have been no arrests.
No.
In this issue, Jonathan, you're talking about something completely different.
You're talking about the Bundy standoff down
in Oregon.
No, this is in Oregon.
But yeah,
there have been no arrests.
They want to put the two back.
No arrests. So what do you guys say? There have been no arrests. Okay, well,
we've got too many people in prison as it is. We don't need to arrest anymore.
Jonathan, when you look up the right issue here, you're saying somebody's going to jail. Nobody's been arrested yet. So how could anybody be going to jail?
I think you're to be all respectful, Nick. I think you're the one that hasn't got his facts right.
I've been watching this since it started 2 days ago. I've been watching it and online and in the news and everywhere I can. And there have been no arrests. There have been no arrests.
I like to talk about Mr. Greenberg, the former president of AIG, who sues us, the taxpayer, because he feels that his payoff for total failure and for the biggest bailout in American history, that he should get an increased compensation for his corruption and total ineptitude. And he won his case in court. He didn't get the money that the creep thought he was going to get. But I would pursue him just for having the audacity to try and screw some more money out of us. I find that the real offensive thing, not something going on in Oregon.
Yeah, but we were talking about Oregon. Or at least that's what I thought.
Nick, okay, let's see. I found some old stories. It all started with two ranchers were thrown in jail, and then they were resentenced. I don't know the whole case, and that's what got the protest going.
Where are you talking about?
I'm just looking up online.
I'm talking about them taking over a federal building, and there have been no arrests in that situation.
Yeah, I thought the Bundy thing. One thing about the Bundy thing in South Nevada is the sheriff actually was supporting Bundy, which really makes it unique. Where that's where the feds backed off, I think. But what happened down there, 200 or 300 people and people shooting weapons at federal officers, is 100% wrong. I think you need to work within a rule of law and as best possible, but you never
rule of law. There is no law in this country. Any bankster, any scumbag that's got his snot in the trough doesn't get arrested, doesn't have any charges. Rule of law. Come off it, Bill. That's gone a long time ago.
No, Jonathan. Rob, you're being quiet. Then we'll go on to the Texas. That'd be exciting.
I was doing graphics.
I thought you were trying to find it. I'll tell you what. Next week, let's do a little research, all of us, and come back, and we'll actually lay out what we're going to talk about and be better organized. I didn't do any pre-show notes.
I know what I'm talking about. I've been following it, and I do know what I've been talking about in terms of this situation.
Well, you clarified your position a little bit better, Nick, because what you are saying is the people that have occupied this facility which Rob is probably right. Most of the federal people are still on holiday break, so they're not particularly that bothered anyway.
No, that's not why that's not why they're not doing it. That is wrong. That's a wrong
you are
assumption,
correct.
Jonathan.
They haven't been arrested. But
They haven't been arrested, and they haven't. They don't. You know what? You know, they've shut off the electricity, right? And they've shut off the water. You know, it's a small thing, but they brought a generator with them. Do you know about that stuff? Okay, so they brought a little generator with them, so they're going to have this standoff, you know, and the media is pretty much ignoring it, and I think it's like so many others, you know, situations where if it's it doesn't involve a minority or a Muslim, then, well, it's not bad. We're not going to call it terrorism. You know, they go in with guns, they take over a federal building, shoo out the people that were supposed to be there. They didn't hurt anybody, thank goodness.
I don't think there's anybody there.
I can only say kudos to them, because what's funny is that they came in and they actually did something and they came prepared. So it's kind of like shamed all the people in Ferguson, right? Because they destroyed the city. They had like no food. It was just mass chaos. But
okay, I'm reading about
these group of organized people come in and occupy it. They're smart enough to bring in generators, so we should all be like clapping, saying, you know, that's the way you're supposed to do it.
I wouldn't call these folks. I'm disagree that they're smart.
A couple of
they're
things.
terrorists.
First of all, the Idaho militia leader came down. Two ranchers were put in jail for 5 years. And this is kind of controversial in that 5 years that they were put in the jail and then re-put in jail. And that's really questionable. Well, now this militia from Idaho, I'm reading this right now, and I'm not totally up on this. This is going to be big. Has come down, like you said, and taken over this federal building. But then the sheriff said,
Oregon.
The militia is from Idaho. I'm reading it right now. The militia from Idaho. I just dropped the link in there, I think. Let me drop this link in. It's a pretty good link.
The militia from Idaho came down to Oregon?
Yeah, because that's where that's where.
What militia? Was it a homemade militia or what? I'm curious.
It's some type. A militia is like an it's a non-sanctioned government, state or government organization. It goes back to militias.
So they call it militias instead of terrorism.
Actually has,
but if it were Muslims doing that, it would be terrorism.
Yeah, I
think Nick, we actually have 3 levels. As an Air National Guard state. And below that, there's actually some recognized militias, even in California, that are by law they're recognized and organized. The very few people know about this, but those militias
are they legal?
They call them they are. They're called auxiliaries. They go back to the date of the founding fathers, and there's 3 levels. The National Guard, as we know it today, is it's half federal, half state. It's under Title 32 and Title 10, but below that, there are some militias that are in different states have stronger militias than others. There are citizen soldiers who are organized. And we actually have a fairly large militia here in California. They do a lot.
Allowed to
do what they do. They're not.
State?
They have these fake ranks, and you can search it, and they're California. But California actually hires them through the state. We have a state organization militia, and they hire them to go help train the National Guard. And a lot of them are older guys who were never in the military. It's kind of interesting. Formation.
Are these militias allowed to jump states? Are militias allowed to jump states? Is that legal for Idaho militia to come to Oregon?
It's not. First of all, I'm sure it's not one of the sanctioned militias.
Right, which sounds like terrorists to me.
Well, I think both of you. I like to just my observation. I think it's a bit far fetched to call them terrorists at the present moment, Nick. But on the other hand, as Bill was explaining, militias in California and blah blah blah. It sounded so American that you got all these kind of quasi-military and people running around who, if they saw some real action, some real, like my dad saw, they probably wet their pants. But they run around calling themselves titles and things. The first bullet shot at them, they probably wet themselves. Really all this needs to be cleaned up. Really, these people that kind of. It was the same. It was the same thing about that poor young black person that got shot by a 70. Was he 70 plus? And he was a kind of. Nobody really clearly says what he is. He was supposed to taser the poor guy, and he got the wrong thing out and shot him in the back. And he wasn't even a proper officer, you know. He rode around because he'd given some money to the county or something. It's so, you know, this whole business needs to be cleaned up. All these different people running around with guns thinking that they're you know, it's...
Anyway, Jonathan, we're going to have to look into this. It's kind of crazy. And I heard a little bit on the news slightly today, and Nick, you've got more into it. And we'll talk about this next week. It'll be good. Hey, let's finish up. We're going a little long right now, and then we'll open this up on YouTube and others. But let's talk about this open carry now in Texas. That's 45 states now. And I did a little research too while we're talking, and I probably mistalked when I said a majority of people want open carry because it's up to the legislature to allow it in among the states. And there's some interesting things there. But anyway, so let's go on to open carry. Open carry.
I think it's great news. Some bloody Texans will probably blow themselves away.
I'm surprised that Texas didn't. Well, 45 states have open carry now. Nevada's had it for a long time.
You guys are, I know.
I mean, 45 states.
Bill and Rob are probably going to hate this statement, but I personally think that weapons, I'm not talking about a war situation or police officers, anything like.
Oops, I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
I didn't do it.
No, it was fate.
It was
NRA is taking
Come back, Nick. Come back. All's forgiven. So I will carry on. Well, I think it's all the opposite. You know, I don't want to see people. Why do people want to run around? I had some geezer go into my Starbucks armed to the teeth. I find it. Yeah, I find it offensive. I actually find it offensive that some idiot wants to come into my Starbucks with Armalite and a handgun. I don't actually appreciate it, actually.
Yes.
Now, if he wants to carry a gun and conceal it, I've got no problem with it. So my mind must be twisted. But these idiots that want to walk around our streets with Armalites and handguns, they're the same wankers that if they were in a real war situation, would just wet their pants, basically.
But wouldn't you rather see a gun on somebody than?
No, I don't.
No, not me.
No, not really. No, I don't actually.
So see no evil, hear no evil, do no evil, right?
Yeah,
well, before I don't know what happened with Blab. Even Sam said that Chrome was doing something crazy with Blab. I don't know. I just got took off. But did you hear what I was about to say? I think, and let me please, before you start yelling at me, let me finish and explain what I'm about to say, except for military and the cops like that. I think that it's cowards carry weapons because they're afraid of the universe. They're afraid that people are going to get them. They're afraid. They're scared people. You know, I've made it 70 years so far. I never had to carry a gun. I've been in situations. I had a knife pulled on me. This was hilarious. The next day, I was about to get my PhD, and I had gone to a party. I was in a suit, and I'm in a market, and this guy was throwing cans onto the aisles. He put his arm in, throwing all these cans, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he pulled a knife on me, and I jumped back. And at that point in time, I got really pissed because my son goes there. I know the name of all of the cashiers. It was my market. I lived a block away. So I went back at him. I grabbed a couple of cans and, I just said, look, you're not going to cut me and I'm going to knock your butt out, and he stepped back and then he came at me and I stepped back and then we went back and forth. But by that time, the cashiers had called the cops and a half a dozen cops came in with guns. Now that's the kind of gun I think that's the gun that I definitely approve of. But people walking around, they don't need to be that afraid of the universe, of life. They really don't. They're cowards. They're scared of nothing. They're scared of ghosts, And a couple of people, this one guy came.
There he goes again.
Here he goes again.
We know.
I reckon it's Rob. Folks. I reckon it's Rob that's doing it.
Rob does.
I reckon it's Rob. You like to respond to that, Rob?
I think Nick's going to accuse me of being a terrorist because I knocked out his blab connection.
Hey, with that, we're gonna carry this conversation on again after the. I didn't do it. Okay, he's coming back. Hey, Nick,
I don't know what's going on. It just stopped.
Nick, we're gonna hold. We're gonna finish up the show for the iTunes portion.
Okay.
And we'll go on YouTube and carry this on. But since you're talking, I'll let you finish up the show with the last couple of words.
Okay. Well, I don't know what you heard about the somebody said that it was my fault that I confronted the guy and I should have just backed off. And then I said to him, you're a coward, and I wasn't going to allow somebody like that to happen. I was ready to stand and fight. I was ready. What it was very upsetting is I didn't have another clean shirt and I was just really hoping I didn't get cut because the next day I had to wear my cap and gown and get my PhD. That's the thought that was in my mind is, oh no, please don't, but I thought that I could probably take the guy. He didn't look that together. He looked pretty wasted. He looked like he was crazy. So
yeah, you don't want to fight people if you don't have to fight people. Only if you're protecting life and limb do you fight.
Well, yeah, he had a knife, and the cashiers were afraid I wasn't going to let him leave, and I didn't. Yeah, and I was smart enough and quick enough to. He lunged at me a few times, and then I raised my hand like I'm going to throw a can of soup at him. And then the cops came.
Yeah. Hey, with that, we'll probably talk more and more about this issue as it evolves and do more research. And I'd like to get someone from the NRA representative on the show. It'd be nice if they come up, or someone from Northern Nevada. That'd be nice. Jonathan, thank you for coming on, and everyone stay tuned because we're going to be on YouTube for a while. This finishes up the iTunes. And also, first of all, we got to tell where you can find everybody. You'll find this at meetthevoter.com, meetthevoter.com. You can find the show notes.
Can I,
Okay, we're back for the YouTube section, and we're going to continue on YouTube for the next hour. It is 10 o'clock on the East Coast, so by 11 o'clock, Rob's got to go to bed, but he's going to handle the show for about the next half hour, and then Nick will take the last half hour, and we're going to let some other folks in. So I got to go make a phone call, so have a good show.
The KK's gone. Come on, where's old
Jonathan?
KK the wizard.
Hey, what does IDF girls mean, Rob?
Israeli Defense Force.
Israeli Defense Force. Okay.
So in Israel, it's common, because everybody has to be a part of has to serve, and so it's not uncommon to see people walking around.
Roxanne is in, so I'm going to cut out so that hopefully Sam would come in. That would be great.
Sam, join us.
Oh no!
In.
What's that?
I want him back in.
Oh, he's gone. Is Sam going to join us? Sammy? Oh no! Do you want him back then? Do you?
Yeah.
Well, come back.
The wizard's coming back. Oh, I'm in the dark.
Oh, he's in the dark.
Nick, come on back in. It's obvious that Sam's not. You need to ask people on the side if they're going to come back in.
All right.
But my lighting is really bad. Let me put the spot. Yeah.
I want to tell him I don't appreciate something.
Nick, come on back in.
He's treating it like an intercom.
No, he's coming back. He's coming back to be told off. Yeah. Go on, have a go. Go and tell him then, Roxanne.
My husband's not a coward. He carries a gun.
Sam, are you?
Well, for what? Self-protection?
Yeah.
How many people have come at him in the last 10 years?
Being with the fire department and an EMT, he's had some. Yeah.
Some. Okay.
Yeah.
So in your measure, Nick, it has to happen at least once in order for you to personally say it's okay for the rest.
Yeah, I think it's paranoia that drives people to carry these things. Complete paranoia and not a reality. I don't think. Now, firemen, okay, that's a different. That's kind of like with law enforcement. It's a very similar thing, but for the average citizen, that probably most. I'm glad I didn't have a gun when the guy pulled a knife on me. I'm really glad I didn't have a gun, because I might have been stupid enough to use it. And I didn't have to. I could assess the situation, and I handled the situation, and the cops were pleased with the whole thing. When they first came there, they called me a perp, because I was one of the people in the fight. So, but they didn't, they were very kind and nice to me. You know, they never cuffed me or anything. But one cop says, "Well, I've got one of the perps here," and that was right as they're, you know, searching the guy, and then they find a knife on the guy. But you know, I just don't think that the universe is unless you're looking for trouble. And I think carrying a gun, you're kind of looking for trouble.
I even know a lady who carries one, has it concealed.
So do I.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
So
she happens to do a personal, she's a bodyguard. She's about 6'2", martial arts trained, and she does movies in Hollywood, and she's very feminine. Oh, she just walks so, you know, feminine and so nice. And these movie stars hire her to be part of their entourage, and you would never guess.
Yes,
and
Nick,
I've sparred with her, and she could, oh my God,
she works
she's
for
so
a bank in a bad part of Winston-Salem.
I like to ask Roxanne. So your husband, is it concealed or is it displayed?
Either one.
Well, why do you feel? So does he carry the weapon?
I carry it every day.
Does he carry it when he's working?
No.
Okay, I'm going.
So basically, him being a fireman doesn't really matter because he's actually carrying it when he's off duty. Is that correct?
Depends on where he goes to help.
I thought you said that when he was on actual
Well,
duty.
he volunteered also. He volunteered
Right.
also.
And why does he feel that it's necessary for his own defence to carry a weapon?
If he's out directing traffic to where they have to make them go, you know, they can't pass either way. They have to close down the lanes. If he's out there directing in a bad part of town, he'll have it.
See, I think it's also, I'm not so anti-mate art, and obviously I'm speaking if he comes back. Is he coming back, do you know, Rob, or did he just disappear?
No, I think he said he was going to do the second half. He's still listening.
All right. I don't know if Sam's going to. See, I think it's a cultural element to this because personally, I'm not really totally against guns. I think there should be more restrictions and more training.
Oh, yeah.
And you could debate what those should be.
I think there should be a permit for rifles now.
Oh, is he going as well? They're all leaving. See, they're all going. They're all leaving.
Maybe we have a permit for a rifle.
But I come from a culture, you know, from one of the most major cities in Europe, London, with a population of over 10 million. And I can assure you there's some really rough parts of London. And there's parts of London which, as a 6-foot guy, I really wouldn't like to be there after 7 p.m. But I've never felt the need, nor have I felt the need here. And I can assure you there's certain parts of Reno which are not fantastic. I've never felt the need that I need some weapon to protect myself.
Oh, that's cool.
So I think that feeling has he been attacked in the past where he hasn't had a weapon, and has he been severely assaulted?
So the only thing that I find kind of odd is the questioning. Like, do you really need free speech? I mean, why did you have to say something that was so controversial? I mean, why didn't you just get along with what everybody said and just say amen and do the sheep call? I mean, that's like, it's weird to know that you've got a right and then be questioned about why you quote unquote need it.
Tell me everything that happens.
Because the need is irrelevant, right? I mean, it's protected like speech. So the government doesn't have the right to infringe speech, and it doesn't have the right to infringe my right to own a firearm. So
I can tell you one thing.
It's not up for.
We were going to the fair down here in Dixie Classic Fair, and we got lost. Went through another neighborhood, and I hate to say it, looked like a bad neighborhood. And someone was sitting in their car along the side of the street, and here we were going by them looking. You're like, okay, where are we? We see him pick up his gun off his lap, a rifle off his lap. It's like, what are y'all doing in our side of town? And that wasn't nice at all.
I suppose it wasn't, Roxanne.
No, it wasn't.
To reply to Rob's comment, you know, I am no expert apart from I probably had to do more studying to become an American citizen than what the average American has to do. But to my knowledge, in the Constitution, it says that there should be a well-regulated militia. And the intellectual argument you're placing, Rob, when you actually read the clause in that Constitution, does not support. Your position is supported by a stream of the Supreme Court findings. That's what supports your position, but not what's in the Constitution, to my knowledge.
There's a Second Amendment.
Most of the people that when the Constitution was formed, remember you have to also account for the day and age, and everybody then owned firearms because they just won the Revolutionary War, right? So whether it was to fend off the Indians or the British or wild animals, I mean that was kind of the culture. Now I'm sure people back then walked around with them, and their neighbors didn't give them the fifth degree as to why are you carrying around a rifle? Is your life being threatened? Well, no, I'm carrying around a rifle because I mean it's kind of like that's why I'm wearing pants. So I think your suggestion that I've twisted the Constitution's meaning to be that I don't as an individual have the right, I think you're flat out wrong. The founders fully understood, because they had come from tyranny, what it was like and the best ways to prevent it. And so it wasn't a well-regulated. How could that even exist? So what in your mind, what does well-regulated mean? Does that mean like a state militia that then goes up against the other 49 states and the federal government? I mean, how would that even? That couldn't possibly work.
Well,
it has to be private. But a well-regulated militia, to what Bill said earlier, is private individuals assembling against a government to defeat tyranny. That's the only way you could possibly think about how it meant.
I think there's 2 points in there. I would never suggest that you're twisting your position at all, Rob. I think you quite honestly hold your views, so I would never suggest you're twisting it. Secondly, I consider regulated militia to be the National Guard, which should be federal and state regulated, and I see a regulated militia to be the National Guard of every state. Well, that's my opinion.
In 1913, they reorganized the federal law. 95% of all the funding for the National Guard comes from the federal government now. They own all the equipment. So they can be federalized, but they come under the governor first. I used to teach the process of how you, if there's ever a terrorist attack in one of our cities, the ramp up procedure from the sheriff to the governor to the feds, and take about 48 hours to get in there. There's all sorts of weird laws that we have to deal with. But Jonathan, what said, one of the arguments, the common arguments in the Second Amendment is that the states have some rights to regulate firearms within their borders. But it also says the clause where I put the Second Amendment in there, it talks about the right of the people to own bear arms shall not be infringed. And that's where it stands. But what they do is they say that doesn't mean all weaponry every citizen can own. So they have to judge it's kind of a strange, there's a lot of leeway there, and it's really up to the people of that state. But it is a right too. It's a right under the Bill of Rights. It's one of the Bill of Rights. So you have to read Webster, and there's a lot to it. It's pretty complex. But
yeah, and I'm totally for a campaign to change the Constitution and to clarify this much strongly. I'm in the middle. I'm not against people who want, as a hobby or hunting, having a gun. I do not see why in a semi-urban area that you feel the necessity. I'm not even against you for personal protection, having a gun on you, as long as you are you got proper training and you're not displaying it. I just don't believe in open carry, and I don't believe that people should be walking around and entering my Starbucks armed to the teeth.
You know what you should do? You should go to Starbucks and complain to Starbucks.
I did, and they said that in Nevada it's legal, and they made the decision that they wasn't going to exclude people
right.
Who entered their premises with open carry, which is their right. I don't agree with that, and I actually wrote to Starbucks asking them to change their policy. They wrote back to me saying that they weren't going to do that, and that that is as well, it stands. But I don't appreciate people armed, and he was armed with an Armalite and a semi-automatic handgun. I just do not appreciate that. I don't see what statement he's trying to make, and I don't appreciate it.
Well, he's doing it's his right in this case that he can do that, and it's legal.
Yeah.
So you did the right thing. The best thing you could do is just not go back to Starbucks, not drink their coffee. I mean,
how would I cope with life, Bill?
It's second to Seattle's best anyway.
Yeah,
I do have.
I imagine Washington.
Huh?
Go ahead.
Washington. Go ahead and finish.
Rob is running this, not me.
Oh.
What the Second Amendment section? I don't know how I got dumped on that. I wasn't even planning on being. I was planning on doing behind the scenes production for you tonight, not FaceTime. But it's all good. I guess I started over the Christmas break. I started watching this TV series called the 100. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. I bumped into it on Netflix, and I guess there was only 2 seasons of it. But through the break, my daughter and I watched both episodes like back to back. So we kind of purged on the two, and I guess the common theme was people get together, they give up their decisions to elected officials, and then you kind of just through both seasons you see the contraction of the people's rights and the growth of power back and forth, and it's always the same. And it's like for sure, Jonathan, you probably may have been uncomfortable, but there are lots of things that I'm uncomfortable with, walking down the streets. I mean, but so what? I mean, a right is a right, and I don't. Yeah. I probably but to be fair though, I will say that like a couple times, even on Blab the last 2 days, I've been in Blabs where people have come on. They've been on like gun shows and stuff like that, and they're bringing on their firearms to the shows, and they're talking, they're opening the slides, and they're doing it, and it's like, to me that was creepy. So I clicked out because I didn't want to even be associated. I didn't want my name to be associated with that kind of conversation. So, but by the same token, you can't just support those things that you like and care about. So I just assume, for me, it's better to lean on to lean in the err in the what's the term, err on the side of not caution. I just assume people let people have open carry than not. I mean, because I don't know that I personally would, but I think it would be a huge infringement, and then it would precipitate more infringements if it goes the opposite way. And Bill, you and I were talking earlier today about the rationalization of like gay marriage, and that its big point was, oh well, if it's legal in this state and it's not legal in this state, how are you going to be able to do? What if these people move? Well, it's funny that same logic isn't applied to concealed carry, right? Because you can conceal carry in how many states?
45.
45. So
I looked. Everyone has different licensing requirements, different rules. Some have licensing requirements, which I thought was unconstitutional. I found that today.
yeah, but in Maryland, technically, I guess you would say Maryland, you could conceal carry, but I think there's only like 2,500 people in the entire state that have that. So I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's about impossible to get concealed carry in Maryland. So you know, I think it's funny how that argument isn't applied, because it should be, right? I mean, if you could conceal carry in one state, you should be able to conceal carry in the other. If you're also going to buy into the argument of gay marriage or other similar arguments that, well, if it's legal in one state and then you move, you should be able to carry those rights with you.
Right.
I understand. I just see it as a purely cultural thing, and yeah. In some ways, I just find the whole situation, as somebody that comes from a culture where it's just isn't part of our culture, and I never felt lacking in personal safety or in any shape or form in the country that I spent my first 42 years living in. And I never felt it necessary, apart from some. I never felt in my civilian life that I needed to be armed in any shape or form.
Yeah, well, I think even in Maryland, even if I could conceal carry, I mean, I wouldn't. But again, it's one thing that I understand sometimes differently than others is just because is being able to disassociate what's valuable or not valuable to me with recognizing that it could be valuable or not valuable to somebody else. And, you know, I mean, that's kind of the thing about free speech, right? I mean, the point of protected speech is to protect the speech that you don't want to hear, because it's easy to protect the speech you want to hear. So the same argument goes. Yeah. You know, I can't say that I would march with those people open carry, you know, but I'll defend their constitutional right to do it. You know, but for me and my business, it wouldn't make any sense for me to come on and pitch you on doing an AV studio with freaking set of 6 guns, Rob's Wild West TV studio show. Or something.
Yeah,
I mean, that would be stupid.
I think, you know, it's all linked with the mass killings. I think it's mixed up with so many different elements. But, you know, so I think it's one of those, you have your positions and you've got to be aware that people have an honourable position that might not be different to yours. And the kind of democratic process will finalise this, you know.
But remember, we don't see, that's the cool thing is that we don't live in a democracy, and I'm only splitting hairs, because the subtlety is that a democracy, right, individual rights are not protected. Majority rules, right? In a true democracy, 51% decide what the other 49 can and can't do. Right?
Yeah, that's why we don't have a true democracy.
That's right. But fortunately, we've got a constitutional republic that is representative government. So our individual rights are protected. Even the one person that, you know, screams and burns the flag and says how much they hate America, their rights are just as protected as those of us that do wave the flag and love America.
And England has a constitutional monarchy, which goes back to Magna Carta, which is really, and so does Canada, which is still good. I believe in constitutional republics and constitutional systems that follow. They keep a balance of power, and they keep the mob from taking over.
Yeah, I wanted to go off this subject a little bit.
Yeah.
I've been thinking, I'm going to say something that's a little bit controversial. Surprise, surprise. I actually think the elite of this country want a major terrorist incident to happen in this country. I actually believe that they have encouraged a situation in the Middle East.
But who's the?
I believe the puppet masters of the Republican and Democratic Party, the industrial corporate elite that did so well out the 2008 collapse that led to that collapse. The banking class, the Wall Street class, the weapon manufacturers, everybody that does well out of death. The security apparatus. Now, I've witnessed Bill have a couple of conversations with some of his colleagues on Blab about the different levels, and they talk a language which I don't even understand, because it's an inner circle of an inner circle. It's become a society in a society, if you understand what I mean. And I think this elite want a major terrorist incident to happen this year, because that so many Americans will then just give away their born right for liberty, and they will just allow a kind of pseudo-fascist state to become a real fascist state, where your rights, your born American rights, are just totally taken away from one.
Yeah.
Silence. What do you reckon, Nick?
Wag the dog.
Yeah, I
I'm
completely
saying
agree.
goodbye to Jeff before he left. Thanks for watching, Jeff.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, I'm not sure that they want a terrorist attack, but see, I personally believe, that 911 was a complete setup. I was there right after it happened, and I talked to firemen. I really think that there's a lot of it was just like the Bay at Tonkin Bay in Vietnam. It never happened. It was a false flag event, and we went to war over Tonkin Bay. Look that up, Bill. It's the truth. It never happened. I saw people, generals and Navy commanders that were there, and they said it never happened. Okay, and it's just like the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq never happened. A false flag. We've been pushed into horrible wars, and and do many people even know why we were in Vietnam? Yeah, okay. I can tell you from some friends, CIA friends, who were there and were in the service, and it was basically protecting the whole Chi Minh trails, which there were actually thousands of trails, where the heroin market. And, the French had colonized North, South Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. And the French were basically controlling the heroin market. And about the time the 50s came along, the budget for the heroin market was as big as the budget for France. So they remember the movie, The French Connection?
Yes. He's gone again. He's off.
The agency took him out.
Yeah.
The agency took him out.
Your friends, Bill. Your friends.
Hey, let me tell you, one of the guys I served with, I just put his link in right here. He was on TV today. I worked with this guy. He wrote a book. It's kind of interesting. He got so mad. We both worked for General Daly, a 3-star general, different times. He got so mad at General Daly that he wrote this book. He submitted it. It took several years to get out of print, and they redacted a lot of it. But it's the story of how he didn't get bin Laden. So it's called Jawbreaker. That said, I surely don't think 9/11 was nothing but what 9/11 was. It was a terrible thing that happened.
Yeah, sure. I don't get me wrong, Bill. I'm not saying that they organised it. What I'm saying is, I'm sure the next incident they won't organise, but they've organised a climate. This idea that I was reading extensively the involvement of the Turkish government in supporting ISIS, that they have been allowing gobs of money from Saudi Arabia and the other Gulf states to be filtered through Turkey, and they also actively through active support of the Turkish government have a oil smuggling chain that goes directly and then goes to Israel. They are this idea that there's been serious airstrikes against these targets is a lie. That's why partly that's why the Russians enter it, because they just got sick of the lies that were being fed to the Western, to Britain, to the American public about all this. So I'm suggesting, and for the establishment to regain control. You saw it after the massacre in California, how the tone of the debate became more authoritarian and more suitable for the elite. They would love another mass attack because, nobody apart from Ron Paul and a few other people in the Senate had the guts to talk against the Patriot Act, which I personally think is, I personally think that act is un-American. It's we talk about the Constitution and guns. I find it an abomination to the Constitution of this country, but hardly anybody apart from the far seen as the libertarian right or the socialist left had the guts to stand up for their liberty against authoritative, a ridiculous regime that's been implemented.
Hey, Rick, we're coming up on the half hour here, so Nick gets to take over. I'll stay on, but Nick can run it. And the rule is you can sort of lead it. You can talk about the topics, but you can't really go hard and heavy. You can say a couple of things, but you let the other folks talk. But that was good. That was good, Jonathan. Rob, I do have a question sort of to ask you because I think the three of us feel similar with the Patriot Act. I want to protect our liberties and freedoms and have, the more give freedom for security, like Ben Franklin said. You got to be careful. But how do you feel about the Patriot Act? Patriot.
Well, that and what the NDA or the ND, no, it's not NDA, the National Defense Authorization. Yeah, that's a National Defense Authorization. I forgot the other letter, but no, I'm not a fan of the Patriot. I mean, the Patriot Act should have been written. The NDA and the Patriot Act should have been written right out of like Atlas Shrugged. I mean, they're like, same thing as like the Affordable Health Care Act. It's like, I mean, you see these acts with these hilarious terms of betterment for people, and yet they have the opposite effect. And that's exactly what kind of was what happened in Atlas Shrugged, right? They had all these great government laws that came in with fancy names that just strip people of their freedoms, and that's what we have in real life now.
What freedoms were stripped with the Obamacare?
Oh, a lot of freedoms, Nick. A lot of freedoms, man.
Like what?
I'm kind of a weird situation.
Well,
I get medical. I'm TRICARE, but everyone's insurance went up who were healthy. Other things.
Not everyone. Not everyone.
Nick,
Yours
Nick,
maybe, but
Nick,
not everyone.
Nick, you're forced to have health insurance. You're forced to have it. You're forced to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bill, you're forced to have car insurance.
No,
you don't have to have a car.
You don't have to have car. I don't have to have car insurance. I don't have to have a car, but you are forced to have health insurance by the government. If you don't have health insurance, they're gonna put a penalty from the IRS this year, next year, and the year after. And it's going to go up a lot. I don't know what happens. Will they throw you in jail if you don't pay your taxes? I don't know. I guess that'd be the next thing.
No, but how about
free health care?
Free,
okay.
Yeah.
Can I
I'll
say
tell you what.
about
That you got to be careful about that. I think they have the worst of all cases on this health on this.
If you let me reply to this, Nick, what I want, Bill and Rob, is what my representatives have, my congressmen and my senators. I'm paying for them. I want the same health care as those so-called representatives that just got their snouts in the trough. So they get better health care, these federal employees, than normal citizens, yet we're paying for them. I just don't understand how that happens. I want the same health
Rob.
care.
Well, right. Make sure that you say we're paying for it. Keep in mind that we is numerically half the population, because the other half of the population doesn't even pay taxes. So half of a private taxpayer pays, you're right, for the premium healthcare of Nick's heroes. And I don't agree with it.
And you know why that is, Rob? Because so many manufacturing jobs have been shipped to a communist country that there was no debate about that. Why was it our corporate elite ships over 6 million jobs to communist China, a communist country, folks. They throw political trade unionists, anybody that speaks against their regime.
That's not true.
I know you're a lover of China, Bill, but Nick. But unfortunately,
have you been there? Have you seen how they live? I have.
I know.
Twice. I've seen how they live, and they have less people in jail. They're the second least country. They're the least country of incarcerated people. They're number 2 of the least incarcerated people. We're number 1. So you're talking about freedom, and they've got we have hundreds of times more people in jail than the people in China, and those people, you call them communists. They're the most capitalist country that I've ever experienced. They're the most people.
They're fascist. And
you haven't been there. I've been there, and I went through a great deal of China, and they are not fascists. Those people, they're more united than we are. They're happier. They're not afraid of the government, as like our media feeds us this nonsense about what China is like. Go there and see. The second time I went to China, I went alone. The first time I went there, I was a little nervous, wondering what it was going to be like. I felt freer there than I do here. And I felt more protected there by the people, not the cops, not the government, but by just the culture. I never got taken out of a dime.
I've got to say, Nick, your apologies for the fascist Chinese government and your denial of the sacrifice of the Tiananmen Square students and all the artists.
I'm not denying
artists and reporters.
And you've never been there. You don't know what it's like. All your information is coming from the media.
I know that it's a brutal, ugly, fascist regime.
How do you know that? How do you know that?
Because I read about all the artists,
you read about it. Right,
reporters that are pests are rounded up by their secret police. All you need to know about them is that they won't even allow their own citizens to utilize a free search engine. They're that paranoid about giving free speech. And your constant excuses for this horrible regime, Dick, is mind-blowing.
You haven't been there, Jonathan. You know not what you're saying, dude. You don't know. I've been there. I've seen it. Well, I saw churches and synagogues. I saw many families with a lot of kids. I saw people protesting. I saw it all over the place, and they have a lot of things wrong, and their government is probably, our government's on so many levels horrible, and so is theirs. But what I'm talking about is the culture of the Chinese people, and they, you're going to hate this. I know you're going to hate this, because I would have never said this till I actually went there a few times, but with what he had to work with, Mao did a pretty good job.
You're talking about one of the worst mass murderers of the 20th century, Nick.
Except for the United States, which killed 100 million indigenous people. Yeah, he killed 35 million. He killed 35 million people. You're right.
Through his policies, over 20 million Chinese.
35 million. The Red Guard killed 35 million.
You think that he was a great leader, Nick?
Well, what I'm telling you, he ended alcoholism. Do you know how he did that? It was running.
Starved them to death, probably, Dick.
Jonathan, you don't know what you're saying.
Let's say Stalin was a great guy then, shall we?
No, I was about to tell you, he did horrible things just like our government did.
See, this you on the left, you make these apologies to these communist fascist leaders.
Because
I'm a believer in the liberty of the republic, of the Constitution, of the founding of liberty, and you just keep making bloody excuses for mass murderers.
Jonathan, and you keep talking about what you don't know about.
Nick, the only thing that I find a little odd is earlier when we were talking about Oregon, you were communicating to us that you were an authority on it because you'd been watching and listening to television, and then
I never said I was an authority.
You're like, oh, you guys don't know what you're talking about. I've been watching CNN and reading the newspapers for the last 2 days. That was exactly what you
Social
said.
media more than CNN.
But Jonathan comes and says, well, I've been, I've read, I haven't been on China, but I've read, and all of a sudden his argument is not valid because he hasn't stepped foot on China. I thought that was a little convenient, that in one set of circumstances you can be an authority, but then applied to somebody else, not so much.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to, I saw about a quarter of China, which I think is enough, to get a real read on what's going on there. Bill, Juliana lived there for a year. Ask her what she thinks about it.
Two nieces who lived there for more than a year.
Ask if she thinks. She agrees with me completely. She lived there a year as an au pair.
I would say that China is definitely going the right direction, and it's like the United States. You can't go back and blame me for, slavery. You can't even blame anybody today for slavery, because we've changed. The United States policies have become modern, and China is definitely moving in the right direction. That said,
I actually agree with you, Bill, and in some ways I agree with you, Nick. I just want to tell you how I see this situation. You can have all the semi-economic freedom in China as you like. You can just lead a normal life. That's not the problem. The problem is when you really push it against the Communist Party and the elite that run China, when you actually effectively push back, then they're on you like a ton of bricks. And it's exactly the same here, Nick. You can gob as much as you like. You can say as much as you like because they don't care, because it's mostly totally ineffective. But when you actually have effective pushback, the elite of this country will be on you like a ton of bricks.
Yeah, I think the governments are both have power corrupts, and when people get into government and they begin to collect power, it is, unless you're somebody like Bernie who isn't for sale, then power will corrupt, and the draw of money and the draw of having power will corrupt even the most young people get into politics thinking that they're going to be they're going to change things, and a few years down the road, they're right in the same, carpetbagger mindset that so many politicians get into. So, Rob,
he had to go. I was trying to get him on until 11. We're going to shut up in about 20 minutes, but he had to go because it's late there.
Bye, Rob.
He's got
Thank
work.
you.
Hey, I was going to change the topic. Maybe somebody else will want to jump in. This is pretty big. We really didn't talk about this, and I'll run the last little bit of this. But in Iran, they burnt down the Saudi's embassy this weekend because Saudi Arabia executed 47 people, and one of them was a cleric who was from Iran that they supported. So that's a crazy part of the world. It's really crazy.
Yeah, you bet. And they 26 of those 40 some were Shias. So that upset Iran big time.
And they're terrorist related. They are identified as terrorists.
And that is one subject, Bill, that is really touchy with me. Why we kiss the butts of the Saudis. I will never understand. They're a brutal, talk about a regime compared to China. They're China's angels compared to the Saudis. The Saudis are a brutal, horrible, backward culture. And they say in the media that they're battling ISIS. Only they're funding ISIS. They're funneling money and weapons, and they're treating their own citizens, unless they're wealthy. The women can't drive. They're beheading, cutting off hands. They are in a backward, complete, crazed world, and yet we treat them like. We let them all go after 9/11. Okay, there were more Saudis on that plane, and let's protect the Saudis. What is going on? What is going on with this?
One word. They go, it's as simple as that.
It's more complicated than that. There's about 2,000 royals, and they coexist with Wahhabis. Wahhabis are the ones who set up the madrasas in Pakistan, which created the Taliban.
Right on.
So, and we funded half of that. But that said, the reason why the royals were sort of in alliance with the royals, they control the Wahhabis, and then they have different levels of folks. They do go after somewhat terrorism with their own country, but it's brutal. That's what they did. They claim Bin Laden out of country.
Yeah, and they claim that they're fighting ISIS, and it's a curiosity that that they're holding hands with the Bushes and kissing them on the mouth. And what's all that about?
This has been a constant discussion through this series. And I think it's time, I feel that because of global warming and the insecurities of the Middle East, it's quite clear to me that this country needs a coherent energy policy, and renewables have their place, and so to a very reduced level, so does nuclear power. But the energy requirements that is really needed is I can only see coming from fusion, and it really needs a planned and resource-driven policy, almost bigger than the Manhattan Project, to drive fusion from theoretical drawing board into reality. And the only country that I know that could do that is still this country. Increasingly, as the climate gets hotter and food production in California and other states in this country gets threatened, the only way you're going to be able to deal with that is desalinization. But the energy requirements that at the scale that's going to be required are going to be enormous. And our elite, who are basically paid by the oil companies and by the defence death merchants, they don't want anything to do with that. They live in a dream world. So it's only when the American people wake up and realise the threat to their children that, the world, things are going to change, really.
You said so much. We should really lay out what we talk about so we can study it ahead of time. But I know Jonathan. I've talked to him a lot. I've known him a few years. And everything he talked about, he's talked in detail about me. So I sort of understand, except for the fusion thing. I know you talk about nuclear power.
Nuclear power, because of the plutonium and security, can you imagine an enormous expansion? We can't even agree, America can't even agree to bury its existing nuclear waste in Nevada, in the facility there, which I actually thought was the wrong decision, always have. But the only way we're going to generate the energy required because water shortage is going to be the next 10 to 20 years is going to be the biggest challenge of most Western states in this country. We might get a harsh winter this winter, but the reality is the droughts are just going to get worse and worse and worse. And the only way we're going to produce enough water to keep the food supply going in Central California is through desalinization. And that requires levels of energy that our present system cannot supply.
No, I agree. And that this leads us into another, what you touched on, Jonathan. Do you know that Wednesday, the Arctic is going to be warmer than many parts of Texas?
I do actually.
Yeah, and do you understand? Have you seen the forecast from El Nino about the storms that it's about to drive and pound us with? I mean, all these tornadoes right now, out of season. Floods that are, we're going to hit. This coming week, we're supposed to have a whole week of rain in California.
Really good,
and that, which is good to a point. Yeah, it's great to a point. But because of the drought, we've lost 30% of our canopy. The canopy being the trees, the treetops, because of this drought. So that means there's going to be a huge runoff, mudslides. I mean, we need the water. Yes, we certainly do. But What's about to hit are a series of storms throughout the next couple of months that are going to be power's going to go out. We're going to need water. We're going to need food. Things are going to get real nasty here. Just like, the people that we just see flooding out of season in the Delta, it's going to get really, really, I'm trying to get people to get a little prepared, get some water, get some, put a little food away, because if something happens, what if the power does drop? What are you going to do?
Yeah, but I do think, wind, solar have their place, but what is not discussed is, and Bill would know more about this than me, how much of the US food production does come from the Central Valleys of California, Bill?
I can't tell you that. What I can tell you is
it's huge. It's huge.
That food is actually handled a little differently in the world, in the United States. It's actually the reason why there's subsidies, and this is what they say, most subsidies is to protect the food supply in the United States in case of war. And it's actually under some military acts that a lot of food subsidies exist. Now, I think they go overboard in the food subsidies. But Central Valley, I spent a lot of time in Central Valley. It is very large. More food's produced in Central Valley than anywhere else. But I was joking. When you were and I are dead, we're going to close on a soft note in the next 10 minutes. Jonathan and I went down to WordCamp LA, and I think we should talk about eucalyptus trees.
Yeah, I think you get onto your trees. I knew you.
I was.
God, he spent literally every time he was driving around. He did drive, though. He did volunteer. I got to admit, I was very thankful.
He stayed at our house. Stayed at my mom's house in Susie.
You agreed to drive, but I had to just sit there and listen to Bill pointing out every eucalyptus type tree.
There's different types, 11 different types, new avocado.
Yeah.
I grew up in Southern California, and, I've been away a lot, going right to the military out of high school into West Point, and then going back and forth and living in other places. And I come back and visit. But one thing you can really see when you come back, you see two things. The freeways expand. There's more freeways than, the asphalt highways, not the asphalt, but the concrete jungle. But that said, California looks more like a tropical zone than anything else now. It's amazing when you go down there, Nick.
I agree.
Bananas on the trees now in Laguna Beach.
I mean, but
flowers blooming out of season, things are crazy.
To get to something slightly, it is only Bernie Sanders and the Green Party in this country that really put forward any kind of, but I don't think even Bernie has really put forward the severity of the situation we might be facing and the resources that need to be put into place to find I'm no expert. I don't even know if fusion is possible. Theoretically it is, but
it's possible.
This is the only country in the world with the technical and the resources that could be put to make that, which is theoretically possible, a reality. And it really is an important subject, Bill, because fundamentally we are going to run out of water, and the Central Valley's been relying on aqueduct water supplies. That won't go on forever.
I looked something up. Okay, April 20th, 2015, California Central Valley produces 81% of U.S. grown carrots, 95% of broccoli, 86%. It goes on and on and on. So they're talking approximately 80% of the produce of the United States is grown in the Central Valley. And have you seen the aerial photos of how it's dried up? So
in the south, south, not the northern part. Central Valley is okay. South, San Diego has had problems with water. Below Fresno.
No, the Central Valley. I've seen pictures of the Central Valley. It's really, there's a lot of, they don't have that much water, Bill.
You come down, I know the water rights pretty well there. Where I'm from, Modesto area, where I spent a lot of time, they have these ancient water rights are pretty good, but there's definitely problems down further south in Fresno because they don't have the same water. Mm-hmm. And the aqueduct is really good. I'm happy they built that.
And the groundwater is really drying up all over the place.
Yeah. And also, there's a lot of salt problems in part of it too.
So, shall we finish with our short and long term What do you call them, Bill?
Yeah, we didn't really do that, but we can. Mine haven't really changed. I don't think Hillary Clinton is going to. I'll lead off. Good job, Jonathan, for finishing. I don't think Hillary Clinton is going to win the nomination. I think there's a strong possibility that the federal or the FBI investigation will damage her so much that she can't win. And that fits in also with Bernie Sanders. I think is a lot stronger than the public is giving, and then the press and the Democrat Party is giving him credit for. So that's standard. In my short term, what would my short term be? Wow.
Wasn't it around Trump?
Yeah, I'm trying to think what it would be right now, though, because things are new. Trump has defied, by maintaining his strength. But I think Trump is so strong right now, he'll probably drop off a little bit. I think, and here's my short term, and I'll be a Democrat side. I think Bernie Sanders will probably take New Hampshire without a problem. I think he will. That's as close to. I mean, I think he'll do well.
He's got to, hasn't he? It's not. He will. I think you're probably right, but he's got to. If he they're praying the establishment of the Democrat, he won't.
The conservative establishment. You're right. They're terrified. And which is why they're completely ignoring him. They're just terrified. And you remember when Hillary at this point in time had a something like a 40-point lead over Obama at this point in time, and look what happened.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's why it's still early until the voting actually starts. Then we'll start finding out what the real polls are saying.
And Trump's lead in the Republican side was not nearly as far as the other candidates. Who was it in the previous election? That McCain and the mayor of New York,
Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah, Giuliani was leading by like 30 points at this point in time.
I liked him
in the last election, and he wasn't even close in the. He wasn't even a factor. So, and Hillary lost to Obama, and she was much further ahead of Obama than she is of Bernie.
Can I ask you something, Nick?
But she's not. I don't even believe she is ahead of Bernie.
Can I ask you something quickly, Nick?
Mm-hmm.
Has Bernie got the? Do you feel he is prepared if he did gain control of the Democratic Party to some extent? Is he prepared to deal with the cancer of Clintonism in the party and really cut this cancer out?
Well, I think he's better prepared than Obama was, and Obama beat her.
No,
so
I don't mean beat her, but cut the cancer out.
Yeah, and we got to get rid of Wasserman. Look what's happened to the DNC since Wasserman's had it. They've lost, I don't know how many assembly seats, congressional seats, Senate seats since she's been in there, and she's been devastating to the Democratic Party. And so, I think that, I think Hillary for prison. Look what Rob put. I saw that. Nice. Rob's funny. I like that one, Rob. And I think that Bernie, people tend to underestimate Bernie's abilities, but he's been on the Hill for 40 years? He has more experience than anybody that's running, even including Hillary. He hasn't been Secretary of the State, but he's been, and his votes have been smart. His votes have been, he was bright enough to know that Iraq war was going to be one of the worst decisions this country has ever made. He said that from day one, one of two people brave enough, one of my favorite politicians is Barbara Boxer. She voted for Iraq war. It was so disappointing. I was, because she's a family with Hillary and also, a Hillary fan. I just can't understand this.
I can understand it because there isn't a real socialist democratic force in the Democratic Party to put these politicians put their feet to the fire. There's not a movement that forces these crony supporters of Hillary and her husband to do the right thing, and it's only through fear and putting the fear of God into them, that they're going to lose their seats, they're going to lose their snout in the trough, that will force them to act properly and defend the country which they swore their oath to protect, rather than their own personal greed.
Yeah. Did you see the chart of the funding of the top Wall Street, Goldman Sachs, AIG, the top people, compared to what they gave Hillary? Wait, let me finish it. What they gave Hillary compared to what they gave Jeb Bush, who supposedly Jeb Bush should be their candidate. They gave Jeb Bush something like 63,000, but 600,000 to Hillary. And all the way down the line, the top 10 Wall Street firms did the same thing. They gave Bush peanuts and they gave Hillary giant amounts of money this year. Gobs. And so who is she working for?
Well, we know who she's working for.
Yeah. So, and I have a lot of my Republican friends who say, stop that, stop bashing Hillary because she just might get it. And then, so you have to stop. Well, I'm not going to stop.
When you're not Republicans,
never am I going to stop. That's what
you need. Why don't you ask one of your Democrat friends who supports Hillary to come on the show?
Oh, please do.
We want to find somebody.
Please find somebody.
How about Dr.
Ruben
Ruben
to have a
Martinez?
conversation with somebody that really.
How about Dr. Ruben Martinez? He's a MacArthur Genius Award winner, has 2 doctorates.
Please.
And he is in the same thing happened last time. He said both times. He said, "Oh, Hillary's going to get it. Obama's doesn't have a chance." And he's saying it again. And I love this man. I love him dearly, like a brother. He's a brilliant fellow, but he is an adamant Hillary supporter. And but he was wrong that time. He's going to be wrong this time. But I would love. He's articulate, and I would love to hear. To have. I'll ask him. He's a professor at Chapman. And we speak.
So I just got one quick other question, and go on to my predictions, and it's about it's about these super candidates, these super PAC candidates that Billy Clinton reckons he's got. How does that work, actually, Nick? Why is it so important to get these super candidates?
You mean the super delegates?
Yes.
Because it's a really skewed way of helping. The whole electoral college is a ripoff. It's horrible. It should go by the votes, but it doesn't. And then it's states' rights people think, well, we have so many super delegates, and they have this crazy, what I think should be absolutely illegal way. When you vote for the president, do you realize you're not voting for the president? You're voting for super delegates.
Yeah, you have a popular vote, and then the
but you're not really voting for the president. You're voting for the super delegates in your state, in your area. Yeah, that's what you do, Bill. I'm telling you, because it's not the people that choose.
No, I know that. I know it's electoral college.
How many presidents have been elected that didn't win the popular vote? Quite a few, and that's because they have this super delegate nonsense, and it's protected. It protects the corporations. It protects the status quo, and it needs to be. They can be bought. They can even once you elect a super delegate, they are not bound to vote according to way the people that elected them voted.
Right,
they are free to vote any way they want. It's crazy.
All right, thanks for that, Nick. I'd just like to go on to my predictions.
Nick, then we'll finish up. Jonathan and Nick.
I actually, my prediction about increased terrorism in this year has actually got worse. I actually think this country is facing an attack that will actually be worse than 9/11. I think the forces that have been stirred up in the Far East, in the Middle East, they are looking to strike either biological or semi-nuclear attack at this country. And I would imagine they're looking to kill much more than 3,000 people. I I actually also think the elite forces in this country actually want that to some extent, and it will help them get the type of. I think they're almost prepared to do anything to stop a candidate like Bernie Sanders from actually getting into any form of real power. So I think the actual situation that the American people are facing this year is probably at a height that only can compare to the attack on Pearl Harbor and the threat of imperial fascist Japan and Nazi Germany faces. But in some ways, internal threats are worse than external. So unfortunately, I think that's the bad news. I think also, I think that Trump is only getting more and more powerful. And it really depends what happens in the next two primaries. If he gets the kind of result that the forces of control in the Republican Party hope that he won't get a lot. But if it's a lot more than they think, I really think he's unstoppable.
Okay, that's interesting. Hey, sometime remind me, not now, but to tell you about Truman's election, because, I worked in the Truman Library. It's a really interesting study because
I'm doing a Truman bust right now.
Just in short, he became the vice president for the second term because the Democrats didn't want, I forgot the guy's name, the guy who was vice president, because they wanted somebody they could control. They thought they could control him from his past history. And it turned out they couldn't control him once he got there. But anyway, that's another story. Nick, you get to finish up tonight, and we're going to call it a night for first evening.
Okay. I think that what happened to Carson, who was right at the top a while back, is going to happen to Trump right after the primaries. I think that people are going to come to their senses, and I think that the DNC has really been working against Bernie. I think they're going to really work hard to squash Trump, the Republican, the RNC. And I think that, so I don't believe that in the short term that Hillary is going to get the election. I think that my long term is still the same. Bernie's going to win by a landslide. And I think that we have a really great shot at restoring fairness in our country. I don't want to say democracy. I don't want to say all these different terms, but a fair culture, a culture that responds to the people, responds to all the people, not just the wealthy, not just the upper class. And we have an intense need to do that at this point in time. Right now, there's 47 million people in this country living in poverty. What is it? 2.1 million people incarcerated. I mean, there's so many issues that are horrible. So my long term, again, is that Bernie's going to win by a landslide, and that Trump will. It's not exactly short term like this week. I'm not sure what's going to happen this week, but within the next month and after the elections start, we're going to see the Republicans do something different.
Yes, so that's kind of a neat forecast. It's a new one that you put in there, that the establishment will do some interesting things. That's good, and we'll talk about that more. I want to finish up because I don't want to go too far over, but I want to thank everybody. One last question, and then we'll put down, make sure everyone goes to timelines. Goes to Meet the Voter, meetthevoter.com. There'll be a few show notes there and some links. But one last question. What do you think about doing it at night as opposed to morning?
I like the morning.
You like the morning better? How about you, Jonathan?
Well, I think I prefer the evening. I'm sorry.
Well, either is fine. Either is fine. I'm not. It's not a big deal to me.
We'll do it 9 o'clock Eastern next week, 9 to 11. I think that's kind of interesting. And I want to try to. I didn't do a very good job because we had a lot of company. I had a great weekend up here, Nick. You missed a great bunch of family up here. It was a blast.
I heard. Yeah.
Well, it's not the young family.
You said 9 to 11 Eastern. That's
Right.
12
No,
to
it's six to.
I just like to finish
okay.
saying something quickly,
Mhm.
folks, because some people have said why I'm gloomy. I'm actually not gloomy. In some ways, I think when you look at the founding fathers of this country, Washington, Hamilton, Jefferson, Paine, all the people that put their lives at the line and their wealth and their families, they only needed to lose once and they would be hanged. And their conviction that a new period of enlightenment and freedom should shine on the world, that freedom, liberty, and average people could rule themselves without tyranny. Such a country formed under such great constitution with such great vision deserves a new breath of freedom and liberty.
Good, Jonathan. Like you can't run for. I think you can run like for everything but president, right? I can't be vice president. Jonathan's only been a citizen a couple of years, 2-3 years. You had to go through all your classes.
Oh yeah, I did. I volunteered to be American, folks, and I honestly believe that. People want to realise that the people that founded this country, for various reasons, they put a lot on the line. And they, when I read about what Washington went through and the people that really fought for this country, what they put on the line for their beliefs, makes what we are required to sacrifice look like nothing.
Yeah, it is scary though, because it's scary. You don't want civil war, and we went through a civil war too. And the future, you got to live within the moment and look like around you right now, and do your best you can. Hey, with that, I'm going to stay on for a couple of seconds. I'm going to turn off the recording because